You're listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Keane. I am the editor-in-chief of the internationally renowned journal Fire Ecology, a journal that's managed by AFI, but it is published by Springer Nature. Today, we're going to be talking about an incredibly important and useful paper, I hope, for everyone. And the name of the paper, the title is Innovation to Support Wildfire Risk-Based Decision-Making, Examining the Incident Strategic Alignment Process. We have three of the co-authors here. Today, we have Cole Buettner. Cole, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks for having us, Bob. My name is Cole Buettner. I'm a research associate in the Public Lands Policy Group at Colorado State University. A lot of my research focuses on forest and fire policy, particularly looking at decision support tools and how they are used for pre-fire management and also incident management. And then on the other side of that, I also look at post-fire response and recovery policies, looking at how those federal policies are implemented and help communities respond and recover from wildfire.
Well, welcome, Cole. Tyler Aldworth, you're next.
Hey, Bob. Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm a research associate at the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute at CSU, and Colorado Forest Restoration Institute is one of three university-based restoration institutes that collectively make up the Southwest Ecological Restoration Institutes, or SWRI. Our mission really is to act as a bridge between researchers, managers, and stakeholders to generate and apply locally relevant science that informs forest and fire management strategies. And so my work is really focused on risk-informed decision-making on wildfire incidents. So really happy to be here to talk about this.
Thank you for coming. And Michelle Greiner, you're our third guest. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Happy to be here. My name is Michelle Greiner. I'm a research associate with the Public Lands Policy Group out of Colorado State University, and I study wildfire and forest policy and ultimately how those policies can improve decision-making on the ground.
Well, thank you all for donating your time and effort for this paper. And it's a wonderful paper. Cole, can you give us an overview of the paper?
The paper is investigating the use of the Incident Strategic Alignment Process, or ISAP for short. The ISAP is a four-pillared process, and kind of the first part of that is Pillar 1, where the critical values at risk are identified. This is happening during an active wildfire, so agency administrators and other local officials are really identifying what those critical values are on the landscape. So obviously there's a lot of values on landscape, but these are those 5 or 7 critical values that are really driving decision-making for that incident. That goes directly into the second pillar, which is strategy and strategic actions. And this is where that incident management team takes that information about the critical values and they build a suite of strategies around those to protect them. Pillar 3 is the risk to responders, and that's where you're identifying any elevated level of risks to your frontline firefighters, given that they're going to be implementing a strategy. The fourth pillar is looking at the probability of success, and that's where the likelihood that a given strategy will protect those values. And so across all of those 4 pillars, managers can kind of have these very holistic conversations across the incident management team and with agency administrators, local officials. So everyone's on the same page and you can kind of discuss risk and strategy in a consistent way across all fire management. And so this is kind of a new process that has come out of the Forest Service. And so this paper is really looking at the value that the incident strategic alignment process brings to managers and then the challenges and facilitators associated with the adoption of that process.
Yeah, that's a really cool process. I enjoyed reading about it. Is there any other background you'd like to talk about this study?
Yeah, so, this study is really a continuation of a lot of really good work that a lot of people have been involved in. Over the past 10 to 15 years, there's been a real emphasis on improving risk-informed decision-making on wildfire incidents, developing durable risk-informed strategy. So our groups have been involved with many of the practitioners on the ground who were involved with risk management assistance, which were a suite of tools and analytics and support to help improve risk-informed decision-making. And many of those same people were involved with the development of ISAP. And so it was a real natural fit with the relationships that we built to continue to not just evaluate risk management assistance, but then also ISAP, especially because of the interplay between RMA and ISAP as they come together pretty seamlessly in the field.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I saw that they were really cool methods. Michelle, do you want to talk about these methods used in the study?
Yeah, of course. So we observed ISAP in 3 case studies or 3 wildfires in 2023. We looked at the Elkhorn fire in Idaho, the San Juan fires in Colorado, and the Six Rivers Lightning Complex in California. And what was really special about these methods is that we used sort of a mixed methods approach. So during a select period during each of those fires, we conducted participant observations to understand sort of daily discussions and interactions among fire managers and how ISAP was really functioning in real time. We worked really closely with ISAP coaches and and IMT leaders for approval to observe each of these fires. At least for Cole and myself, this was really our first experience at an incident command post, and it was really special to just witness decision-making in real time. I know we were all pretty grateful for that opportunity. I was pretty honored to be able to buy my first pair of Nomex pants. So after we did field observations, those really allowed us to refine our interview protocol and gave us some additional background context. So following those, we conducted 30 interviews and we spoke with IMT leaders and members in different sections, ISAP coaches, AAs, and some key cooperators to really understand how ISAP was being used in practice and some of the key factors that were supporting it, what was challenging to its use, and then we gathered up any recommendations that people had to improve the process.
So, Cole, how about a sneak peek at some of the results?
Yeah, so we obviously found a lot of different really interesting things, and you'll probably have to read the paper to get all of those. But a couple of really interesting things that we thought we found were the idea of who is allowed to engage in this process. And so obviously you have your incident management teams who traditionally have delegated different authorities to different sections of the incident command system. So when we're talking about strategy development, that was particularly in the operations section. And so through the ISAP, you're obviously opening the door for other people in other sections and also your agency administrators, your cooperators, your local officials to have a say in what we're going to do on this fire. And so that hadn't traditionally been a thing in incident management. And so there was perceptions on both sides of on one side, it was very great that people got to engage with people that they wouldn't have engaged with otherwise on the fire. And people who have been in the wildfire system for so long could now talk about their experiences where they traditionally wouldn't have had that opportunity. On the other side of that, there were people that felt like the ISAP really opens the door for people to step out of their lanes, talk about things that they're not being paid to talk about. So there was kind of those dual perceptions on what the ISAP was there to do. We also found on the Six Rivers complex fire that the ISAP kind of breaks down when it's not being implemented for traditional uses. And what I mean by that is on that fire, there was a lot of tribal leaders that were a part of those discussions. And so what we found is that the way that ISAP operates isn't always conducive to the way that tribal leaders would share their information to have fires managed. And so it's kind of important to think about how can we adapt this process to fit other local contexts if they're not that traditional implementation. Also, we found that ICs, incident commanders, are really important for getting the incident strategic alignment process adopted. Having that leader's intent really helps facilitate the incident management team, those agency administrators, to accepting this process and really doubling down and saying this is the way that we're going to manage our fires in the future.
This study obviously has huge implications for the management of wildfires. Do you want to go into those implications?
Yeah, and so part of our evaluation was to help. This was a very much a co-production model with ISAP developers to evaluate how the process could be improved. And one of the things that came out of that was back to this values piece of it makes sense that maybe we could identify these values in the preseason before there's the pressure and tension and time pressures of an active incident. And so one of the things that have come out of this related to critical values are a bunch of efforts across the West now to try and pre-identify and categorize those critical values in the preseason, build that alignment before, this really high pressure, time limited situation that managers will be faced with occurs. So there's efforts going on with U.S. Forest Service Enterprise in Region 1, some regional fire planners in Regions 5 and 6 are undergoing this. And then also CFRI is working to try and incorporate these types of conversations into community wildfire protection plans locally here in Northern Colorado and trying to see to what extent that would be a kind of a manageable exercise. So I think that there's a lot of continued opportunities too. This is just one example where there's a continued need for partnerships between scientists and land managers, because I think together we're a really powerful team. And this is a very complex, wicked problem. And I think that these types of partnerships, this type of co-production can lead to some really powerful, actionable solutions.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important. So, Michelle, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes to mind is one thing we're thinking about that might challenge ISAP that a few of our interviewees brought up, that we didn't really observe ISAP during extreme fire behavior conditions. So one thing that a lot of people said that might complicate the process in the future, just because there's more limited time to discuss risk and strategy. So I think it could be interesting in the future to observe ISAP during a more extreme fire behavior event. So just keep that in mind for the future. I think a new study could look into that and it would be interesting.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you guys for coming. Cole, do you want to recognize any co-authors of funding agencies?
Yeah, as far as co-authors, definitely want to recognize Courtney Schultz and Tyler Beaton. They're kind of our fearless leaders on this project, provided a lot of oversight, a lot of support, and so we are very thankful for them. Funding sources that funded Michelle and I is Rocky Mountain Research Station provided funding for this work. And then we'd also like to thank the ISAP coaches who we were following throughout our observations and asking a bunch of questions, and so very thankful for them to be willing to do that and then be patient with us as well. And of course, our interviewees who, without them, our work wouldn't be possible. So thank you to all those folks.
Ty, have you got anybody you want to recognize?
Yeah, big shout out to the U.S. Forest Service Washington Office of Fire and Aviation Managed Strategic Analytics Branch. CFRI has an agreement with them that has funded this work, our work evaluating risk management assistance, and some strategic fire planning work elsewhere. They've been huge partners and really supportive of this work. And then also, just seconding Cole, I want to give a shout out to all the people that we worked with when we were collecting data on this fire. All of these incident management teams were very hospitable, and we could not have produced the type of research that we did without their engagement and support.
Well, I want to thank you three for coming today and talking about this really incredibly important paper. For listeners who want to learn more about the study and read the paper, you can download it for free. These guests today have already paid the freight for you guys to go ahead and read the paper. So please download the paper, read it, and learn all about this wonderful process. Thank you three for being with us today.
Thanks,
you,
Bob.
And we'll see everybody else on the next Fire Ecology Chats.
Thank you for listening to Fire Ecology Chats, a podcast series by the Association for Fire Ecology. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our show and leave us a review. To learn more about fire ecology and support our future work by becoming a member, visit fireecology.org. FIREECOLOGY.org.